Welcome to another vlog. This week's topic is inclusion. So I want to spend today's vlog talking a bit about the ways in which my teachers and employers have accommodated for me over the years. Now, before we begin, I have heard some horror stories in the past from people who have been mistreated by their teachers and employers. I myself can't speak to that because I've never experienced that. I've had all good experiences where my teachers and employers have bent over backwards to accommodate for me to make sure that I succeed. So I'm going to first start by talking a little bit about my experiences in the public schooling system. So when I was young, growing up with a disability, obviously I was a lot different than the other kids. There were a lot of things that I couldn't do that they could or couldn't do the same as them. And it was important for my teachers to take that into account even before I was in a wheelchair. Um, Especially in gym class, for example, my gym teachers would always have to make sure that the activities were adapted for me. If it was something that we were doing that I couldn't participate in, they needed to come up with clever ways to modify the activity so that I could participate in them. This was especially important when I did start using a wheelchair and there were more things that I physically couldn't participate in, so they'd need to come up with unique ways to change the activity so that I could participate in it in my wheelchair. Another thing that they do is when we went on field trips, they'd make sure that where we were going was accessible and that I had everything that I needed. A good example of this is in grade 9, when I was 14 years old, all of the grade 9 students always go on a trip to Quebec, where we, go around the province of Quebec, Montreal, and Quebec City, and look at some of the landmarks and learn about the history. It's a week-long trip. Um, During the trip, my father went with. He was basically my attendant on the trip who helped take care of me, with all the things that I couldn't do. So they made sure that everything was accommodated for him. They made sure that all of the hotels that we were staying in had accessible rooms that I could stay in. And for the most part, all the venues that we went to, they made sure were accessible. Obviously, there were a few venues that weren't, um, that I couldn't go to, but they'd find other ways that I could still participate in those activities. Um, Another thing that they did is when I was in junior high, they didn't have a proper system for evacuating someone in a wheelchair, getting them off the bus, or evacuating them out of the school in an emergency scenario. So the school board worked with myself and my instructors to develop a plan that could safely get me off the bus or get me out of the school in case of an emergency. Right? So as you can see, my school and my teachers have always been very accommodating of me. Obviously, there's some areas where they could improve, but I think under the circumstances, they did a pretty good job. Then, when I went into the workforce, um, things were quite different. It's always been difficult for me to find work, especially where I have a disability. There's a lot of jobs that I can't do, and unfortunately, there's a lot of employers that are hesitant to hire me. But the employers that I have had have been very good to me. My last two jobs, I was given the opportunity to work from home. This meant I didn't have to worry about commuting to work in the morning, and I didn't have to worry about whether or not the office was accessible because I was working from home and I knew that everything that I needed was within arm's reach. Um, there were some tasks that I couldn't do, that the job involved that I couldn't do, and most of the time my employers would overcome this by replacing the tasks that I couldn't do with tasks that I could. So essentially, my workload was the same, it's just the duties were a little bit different, tailored to fit my specific needs and abilities. And it was good that they did this because it meant that I could successfully do the job which at the end of the day, that's what the employee's responsibility is to successfully complete their duties and do the job to the best of their ability. And I was able to do that because of how my employers always accommodated for me. Um, Now, there's a myth that a lot of people think that hiring people with disabilities is risky, maybe because it costs a lot of money or there's things that people with disabilities can't do. Um, I can tell you from experience that my teachers and my employers never experienced that. It didn't require any money, any extra money, didn't require any special skills or additional resources for them to do those things and to accommodate for me. All it required was an open mind and a little bit of creativity. So that myth that it's risky to hire a person with a disability, at least in my case, is not only inaccurate, it's also ridiculous. Um, so that's pretty much all for today. I just wanted to talk about that because it fits into the topic of inclusion. Um, Stay tuned for the video on Thursday in which I'll discuss what inclusion is and what it means. Um, Before I go, I actually have a bit of an announcement. Next week, I will not be posting a regular disability series video because I will be in Ottawa for the Canada 150 celebrations. So there won't be a regular video, but I will be posting a special edition Canada 150 vlog, which will be filmed on location. So that's very exciting, and I hope that you'll tune in for that next week. Other than that, thanks for watching, and see you next week.